And finally, Shadowhunters is back in our lives. So season 3 is upon us. Episode 1 has aired, and it was quite an introduction to a new season. There are just so many things going on and so many points of interest. So whenever I do my reviews, there is no clear plan for them. I just find things to talk about and talk. So please don't excuse how much of a mess this review is. I have no structure. Season 3 picks up pretty much straight after where we left things in season 2. So you all know what happened at the end of season 2. There's no point in me going over that. As we were already aware, this season is going to focus on Lilith. It's pretty much following the basic structure of City of Fallen Angels. One of the things that I am really excited about with season 3 is that we get to see Lilith. I have mentioned this before, but in the books we don't really meet her until the end. We know that something dark is happening in City of Fallen Angels, but we don't know exactly what it is. Whereas in the show we already know that it is Lilith. So I am excited to see her scenes and see what she does throughout this season, because it's a part of the story that we never really got a look into. I'm going to start this discussion by talking about how fantastic I think Lilith is in the show. She is creepy as hell, and might I add that she is dressed fantastically. Her outfit, on point. That scene of her in the hospital looking at the babies, because one of the creepiest things in City of Fallen Angels is that ending and the storyline with the babies. That scene in Fallen Angels where they find the babies terrified me whilst I was reading it. So yeah, knowing that the show is going to do their version of that, I am equally excited and scared to see how it's going to play out. We have this scene in the hospital of Lilith telling poor Dr. Tim all about her ex-husband Adam. I just thought that was a really brilliant scene, and it's setting up her future storyline with newborn babies. Can we talk about poor Tim? Honestly, this season's pointless campaign is justice for Tim. He deserved so much better. He was such a nice guy. But Lilith got her hands on him. The scene where he was actually possessed, I thought that was done really well because it was creepy in the rain and everything. Also, whilst we're talking about Tim, I need to mention that fight scene between him and Clary later on in the episode. Oh my god! When he bends over and his head twists. Yeah, that was disgusting, but in a good way, if that's possible. That scene had so much potential to be bad, effects-wise, but it wasn't. It was actually really great, so I am so relieved and happy that that scene was creepy and gross. One thing I will say about this season is they seem to have upped the creepiness on the demons and stuff. The effects are looking great so far. But yeah, poor Tim. Didn't deserve that. Anyway, going back to the overall episode, we start in Alicante with Clary becoming a fully fledged shadow hunter. Go forth, my daughter, and be the badass demon slayer that you were always meant to be. She gets her angelic rune in Alicante. Can I just say how beautiful the scenery was? It was so fantasy-ish and otherworldly, and yeah, it looked great, and I want to see more of Alicante. We also get that conversation between Clary and Alec, where Alec clearly knows that Clary is lying about what happened on the night that Jace came back to life. It's his parabatai. He knows something's not quite right. Later on in the episode, we have a scene between Clary and Izzy, where Izzy is supposed to match Clary with her perfect weapon. And again, in that moment, I think Izzy knew that something wasn't quite right when they were speaking about that wish, and Izzy asks how Clary managed to not make a wish. I think the expression on Izzy's face definitely said that she knew something wasn't quite right. So I think both of the Lightwood siblings know that they don't know the whole truth. Also, I have to say that I really did love that cute little scene between Clary and Izzy in general. They were just walking around the institute holding hands again like the perfect girlfriends that we'll never get to have because the Clace and Sizzy expectations have to be filled. I love both Clace and Sizzy, by the way. Just let my Clizzy heart cry for a moment. at what could be. But anyway, I love them and I love that little scene. Clary ends up picking out these dual dagger type things. Later on, she ends up having this scene with Luke because she goes with him to investigate this demon killing. When she shows Luke the blades that she's chosen, he ends up telling her that they belong to her father. Is it both blades or just one of them? I can't remember. She's a little bit shook by that. I love how Luke was like, the blades choose you. Calm down there, Ollivander! Clary doesn't look entirely happy knowing that she's using the weapon that Valentine used. But I love that we got that scene between Clary and Luke. They go off and end up fighting together in this episode. And can I just say that it made me miss scenes with Clary and Luke because I always feel like we don't get enough of them as we should. And this episode proved just how good they can work together, and I love their bond, and yeah, I want more Clary fighting with Luke, please. They end up taking down poor Tim, who isn't actually Tim because he's an evil demon. Clary tries using the blades, but it doesn't really work out so well, so she ends up using her rune creation skill to murder it instead. Again, I've just got to say how much I absolutely loved this scene. It was shot so well, the location made it look creepy, and that final moment where Clary kind of stares down the demon and both are either ends of this hall and they start coming towards each other, that was so brilliantly done. But anyway, Clary shows this demon who's boss, murders its ass, and Luke tells her that it's clear the blades aren't her true weapon. Her true weapon is her own ability to create runes. So let's talk about Clace for a moment. The Clace storyline is pretty much following what happens in City of Fallen Angels. They know that they are not brother and sister anymore, so it's not illegal for them to be romantic. Finally, it's not incest. You just have no idea how glad I am that that storyline is out of the way now. Bye! You won't be missed. So yeah, we get some scenes in Jace's bedroom. Clary comes to him in the night. They're getting a bit intimate on the bed, and of course we know this from the book. Jace starts imagining himself stabbing Clary. He ends up seeing Sebastian in the room and he is telling Jace to stab Clary. Whilst they are fighting, he accidentally does run the dagger through her. And of course he wakes up. He wakes up to find Sebastian in his room, and then he wakes up again. I'm not sure the whole dream within a dream thing was necessary, but at least it made it pretty clear that Jace, he's not doing okay. He's not quite sure what's real and what isn't. So later on towards the end of the episode, when Clary actually does come to him, it starts playing out exactly the way it did in his head. And of course, Jace is too scared to be close to her in that way because he doesn't know what he might do. So he just ends up holding her instead. I love the way this part of the show is being done accurately. As much as I like the show branching off and doing its own thing, I like it when it takes a big part of the book and does it well. And this was done pretty much exactly how I imagined it in Fallen Angels. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this progresses throughout the season. Okay, so moving on to other characters, let's talk about Malik. Magnus is no longer High Warlock of Brooklyn because of the things that happened in season 2 with the Seelie Queen. We have that scene where Alec finds out and Magnus is pretending that he's absolutely fine. And you can tell in that scene that he's not, and I think Alec had a bit of an inkling that he wasn't perfectly okay with it either. Alec also tells Magnus that he's been offered a place on the console, but it would require him to go to Idris. I absolutely loved Magnus telling Alec that this job is all he's ever dreamed of. But then Alec replies with, meeting someone like you is all I've ever dreamed of. My heart, honestly. What I loved about this episode was Magnus trying to be okay with it because he thought it was what Alec wanted. But then at the end of the episode, he opens up and tells Alec the truth, that he didn't want him to go. It just made me so happy that whilst he closed himself off at first, he eventually did open up and tell the truth. We love a healthy relationship. That scene whilst they were playing pool, it was just so pure. So pure. Kisses in the middle of Hunter's Moon. So all in all, a lovely episode for Malik. Whilst we're on the subject of Magnus though, I want to talk about Raphael. What are you doing? What are you are you doing? So we have this scene where Raphael comes to see Magnus to get some sedative for vampires, I think. And they have this talk. And Magnus knows Raphael is lying about what it's for, so he ends up crying and saying that it's actually for his sister because she's not doing well and that he's scared of losing his last living family member. And that whole scene was so beautiful. I was like, look at these two friends having this moment. Raphael is like a son to Magnus. Magnus is there for him. But then it turns out it's absolutely nothing to do with Rosa at all. Raphael has someone in some sort of darkened, seedy lab and he's doing experiments. Really not sure what's going on there. I have seen some theories about maybe he's experimenting with daylighter type things because he wants what Simon has. I really don't know. I had a feeling Raphael might have been up to something because after the scene where he cried, his expression kind of changed a little bit, so I wasn't sure whether to believe him or not. But I really wanted to believe him when he was talking about Rosa. But yeah, he's actually doing dodgy things. Okay, so let's move on to Luke. My big hope for this season is that Luke gets more storylines. I want to see him in action. I want to see him working more with the others. Instead of just being the go-to information guy, I want him to get involved properly. So last season we were introduced to this new assistant of his called Ollie. In this episode, she continues trying to get information out of him about werewolves. We find out that she actually has a scar on her arm from where she was scratched by a werewolf, but Luke, not wanting her to get involved, tries to convince her that it didn't happen, that it was probably just a wild wolf. And throughout the episode, he keeps trying to convince her that that's all it is and there's nothing more to it. She's the one that ends up tracking down Tim. When she's trying to take him down, Luke as a werewolf steps in. When she wakes up later in the hospital, Luke finally does tell her that all the legends are true. I love it whenever they say that line. So now she is a mundane that's going to become aware of the shadow world. I'm so interested to see where this goes. And I actually do like this partnership between Luke and Ollie. What's also great is that I don't have to worry about romantic tension being there, because Ollie has a very lovely girlfriend who I hope we see more of this season. It makes me relax so much when we don't have to worry about a romantic subplot. I actually saw somebody say on Twitter that they hated Ollie because her storyline was dull and pointless. First of all, hate is a strong word. And second of all, I completely disagree. I really like Ollie, and I think it's nice to have someone who is a complete mundane who's just become aware of the shadow world. I mean, she probably won't stay a mundane for too long because everyone who is a mundane and finds out about the shadow world later transforms into something else. Hello, Simon! So I'm not sure she's going to stay a mundane for the remainder of this show, but at the moment I do like her storyline and I am interested to see where it goes. What we've also got to remember as well is that it's providing another plot for Luke. This show has killed off Jocelyn. Considering a lot of Luke's storylines in the books included Jocelyn, the show can't really do that. So they have to find something else for his character to do, other directions for him to take. And I think that's part of the reason why I like Ollie being in this show, because it's giving us a good plot for Luke. So yeah, I like Ollie and I'm excited to see more of her. Izzy, I want to talk about Izzy for a second before I forget. There is a scene in this episode where her, Jace and Alec have to go to the hospital where Tim worked. It's also where Katerina happens to work. Yay for more Katerina. But we have this scene where Izzy really needs some chocolate, so she ends up kicking shit out of a vending machine. An iconic moment, really. But then Dr. Sexy appears. Who is he? He definitely wasn't there for absolutely no reason. I really hope this isn't a love interest for Izzy, because honestly, Izzy doesn't need a love interest. She's a strong, independent shadow hunter who don't need no man right now. She's fine. As beautiful as Dr. Sexy is, she doesn't need another love interest, honestly. I do have a feeling that his character has a bigger role to play though. I don't think he's just some random love interest. I think he's probably going to mean more. I really don't know, but we will see what happens with him. Okay, so the last thing I really want to talk about is Simon. He has been in the Seelie court. He doesn't really know why he is there. The Seelie Queen ends up putting a mark on his forehead. It doesn't tell him what it's about. I'm a little bit confused because I remember seeing the mark in the promo for season 3, and I was assuming that it was a mark of Cain because somebody ends up dying in front of him when they're trying to kill him, I assume. So I'm still thinking that it's the mark of Cain, but I'm wondering why it's the Seelie Queen that puts it on his head. Unless it's not the mark of Cain, it's something similar. I don't know, but I'm very interested to see where they take this. Once he gets out of the Seelie court, he ends up going straight to Maya. We didn't get to see much of Maya in this episode, but I am so happy that she is now a regular part of the cast. She has her part in the opening sequence. Yay! I really love her character, and I am looking forward to seeing more of her and Simon in this season, because although I know they're only temporary, I really am enjoying scenes between them at the moment, so I'm looking forward to the rest of the season with them. So yeah, that's about all I can think of to talk about right now. You already know that I forget to mention so many things. You can guarantee that once I've actually uploaded this video, my brain will be like, haha, guess what you forgot to talk about. So yeah, if there is anything that I have left out and you want to discuss, then please do leave it in the comments. Chat to me about all the things. I really enjoyed this episode. I did feel like the ending was kinda abrupt, but I think that might just be because I felt like the episode went by really quickly. In terms of how the show looks, I'm really happy with the effects this season. I also think the music has been really good. That scene with Tim walking through the rain, I really like the music that they used over that. This show just keeps learning and improving, and it does seem to take in comments that we have as well, which is one of the reasons why I really love the team behind the show. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed episode 1. It's got me super excited for whatever is to come this season. The preview for next week looks great. Malik going to a warlock party to say hi to Lorenzo, the new High Warlock of Brooklyn. I am excited about this storyline because we literally have no idea what's going to happen with that. Like I said before, please do leave me all of your thoughts. What were your favourite parts of this episode? Is there anything that you didn't like? Let me know all the Shadowhunters things. I will be back here next week with another video. I'm excited to be talking about Shadowhunters again. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you stick around for season 3. Bye!